Let me just show you, this takes a minute, the progress we've made. I said this is an optimistic group, but a lot of groups that I talk to are surprised to see this kind of progression because they think the world is getting worse. But I have a lot of graphs like this. We can see the progress from 1800 to today, in this case on two dimensions, health and wealth. So wealth, it's income per person in today's dollars. So it's hundreds of dollars. These little circles are countries. You can watch the red circle, that's China. It does some interesting things as I run to the present day. On the y-axis, it's longevity. 1800s, it's in the 20s and 30s. Worldwide average 37. So what happened over the last 200 years? Well, at the beginning of the first industrial revolution, a few countries were experimenting and making a little bit of progress. But as we get to the 20th century, you'll see a wind that carries all of these nations towards the upper right-hand corner. Now the have-not divide remains. The countries that are better off remain better off. But the countries that are worst off at the end of this process are far better off than the countries that were best off at the beginning of the process. And I shouldn't say end of the process because it hasn't ended. In fact, it's speeding up. Particularly when we get things like three-dimensional printing, we will be making even more rapid progress. As we get to the more mature phase of biotechnology, we'll be expanding longevity even more quickly. Education, I'll show you one graph. Here you can see we've actually tripled the number of years of schooling that a child receives in the developing world, doubled it in the developed world. There's a have-not divide, but they're both moving in the right direction. And I mentioned resources. There's a story like this on food and water, but if you look at energy, the cost per watt from solar energy is coming down quickly as we applied, for example, nanotechnology to solar panel design, which is a form of information technology. As a result, if you look at the lower right-hand curve, that's the total amount of solar energy in the world. That's a logarithmic scale. That's a doubling every 2 years. And that's been going on for 30 years. And it's now reached 1%. So people say, oh, 1%, it's kind of a fringe player, just like they dismissed the internet or the Genome Project. But that's only 7 doublings, and it's been reliably doubling every 2 years and will continue. So 14, 15, certainly within 20 years, we can meet all of our energy needs at very low cost from the sun. So Larry Page of Google and I did this study for the National Academy of Engineering. They adopted it. I presented this to Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, who was actually in my class at the Sloan School in the 1970s. And he said, Ray, but do we have enough sunlight to do this with? And I said, yes. After we double 7 more times, we'll be using 1 part in 10,000 of the sunlight. That is to say, we have 10,000 times more than we need. And there's a similar story on other resources. We're running out of resources only if you limit yourself to 19th century solutions like fossil fuels. But these other solutions are coming on in an exponential manner. So here's the progress we made from the linear progression of health and medicine before it was an information technology. Now that it's becoming an information technology, it's going to go into high gear. I expect that within 15 years, we'll be adding more than a year every year to your remaining life expectancy. So as you go forward a year, your remaining life expectancy will move on away from you. So if you can hang in there, we may get to see the remarkable century ahead.